Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 20th edition of TWitWoW Request Live. We went live on Tuesday to live react to Wrestlemania X7. We ran out of time because SmackDown Live came on. So we are back now today to talk about the show in hindsight with a TWitWoW style review. John, I know we usually kind of start with your intro for reviews, but this is TRL, so I figured I would take the ball. But still, I want to know overall, just kind of broad stroke, general thoughts. What did you think about WrestleMania X7?
I thought it was fantastic. I thought that the matches, for the most part, were incredibly well paced. I never really felt like a match lingered. I never really felt the time until like maybe towards the very end, but that really isn't even because of like the match. It's because, you know, when you're live reacting, you know, and it goes on for that long, you know, but yeah, really from top to bottom, the card was great. I can see why it's hailed as one of, if not the best WrestleMania ever. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about these matches today.
Yeah. All right. Well, I pretty much feel the same way. I loved the show. I'm really glad that Paul requested for us to watch it. It was a lot of fun. And let's talk about the first match on this show, which was Chris Jericho versus William Regal, I believe for the Intercontinental Championship.
Yes, it was for the Intercontinental title. And, you know, Jericho was the champion, Regal the challenger. And I thought this was a fun opening match. I thought Regal's psychology working over Jericho's shoulder was fantastic, you know, exposing the turnbuckle so that he could throw Jericho, you know, into it and really soften up the shoulder for the Regal stretch. Was great. Regal looked fantastic here. He even got a double arm underhook suplex off the top rope, so like avalanche style. Jericho had some nice babyface comebacks, and, you know, Regal looked like he was going to get the Regal stretch at one point, but Jericho quickly got to the rope, so that finish really gets protected. Jericho, I don't think he ever really did get the walls of Jericho. He does win the match with the Lion Salt, which felt like a bit of an abrupt ending in a way.
He hit the Lion Salt after he threw Regal into the exposed turnbuckle.
Right, it was exposed turnbuckle, then Bulldog, then Lion Salt, right? Because that's how I remember it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, all that, which, I mean, yeah, I guess when you add in the exposed turnbuckle, it makes it feel a bit less abrupt. But, yeah, on the whole, I thought it was a fun opening match. What did you think about it?
Absolutely. You know, out of all of the matches on this card that look like OMG work rate matches, this was probably the worst of them. I mean, you've got this, you've got Eddie Test, Chris Benoit, and Kurt Angle, and then you're obviously your main event. And out of those four kind of work rate style matches, I felt like this was the weakest of the four. That's not to say it was bad, because it was still a really solid match. It was just underwhelming relative to a lot of the other matches we got on this show.
Yeah, I can understand that for sure.
Like, here's a good way to put it. This might have been the ninth or so, maybe eighth or ninth best match on this entire card. But if you would have had this exact same match on a WrestleMania today, it would have been like the third or fourth best match. That's just how stacked this card was.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that assessment.
All right. So after this, we got the big 3-on-3 match, right to Censor versus Tazz and the APA and RTC. There were 4 members of the RTC, but only 3 of them were actually in the match. I forget which one of them stayed out of it. And then because of the 4th member, Tazz and the APA brought Jacqueline with them.
Yeah, because I know on the RTC side, it was the Good Father, Paul Buchanan, and I believe Val Venus.
Yeah, which means Stevie Richards. Yeah, so Stevie Richards was out of it.
Yeah. And like I commented on live reactions, you know, Bull Buchanan and the Good Father, very impressive. You know, even if that was like the limits of their athleticism, they looked awesome. I mean, Tazz suplexing Bull Buchanan, that's always like a sight to see. Or it might have been Val Venus that he did the exploder suplex too. But, you know, human suplex machine, it was great seeing him. I just love the idea that you go from Godfather to Good Father, and it's like, I'm reformed. I would have loved to have seen like all that come about. But yeah, it was a fun match, and again, very nicely paced. Like, you're not going to expect a 20-minute clinic with the people involved, but I feel like for what we got, it was nice with a great finish because Good Father tries going for that splash in the corner. Bradshaw moves out of the way.
Train.
Or as I called it on live reactions, the wholesome train. And, you know, he missed it, got a clothesline from hell that Bradshaw and APA and Tazz win it. Again, well-paced match and really not much to say. What about you, partner?
Yeah, the finish was the best part to me, just because freaking Bradshaw's lariat is Stan Hansen level awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you there.
Then we get to our first real, like, let's get into this and holy shit, this is amazing kind of match. Raven versus Kane versus the Big Show, which on paper looks like a piece of shit, but this was early 2000s monster Kane, and Raven was just so creative, and the Big Show was there, but he wasn't like a detriment to the match by any means. And this was a triple threat hardcore championship match, and it's not that it was an amazing match. It was just a lot of fun. I really had a lot of fun with this match.
That really is the word, isn't it? Fun. And honestly, if I could give a compliment to this match outside of the fun that's a bit more substantive, I commend this match for being more restrained. And what I mean by that is, I mean, it was certainly invented with the hardcore stip, but I was very wary of the 24/7 stipulation that I know for a fact was still in effect at this time. And the idea that we didn't see Crash Holly or Hardcore Holly or Steven Richards or anybody try and cash in and try and do that. And it really was just these three guys from bell to bell. I thought was really cool, actually. I thought the idea that it was restrained, you could focus on these three guys, allowed me to appreciate what was going on a lot more. And some of the spots, man, what I really appreciated about this hardcore match, it never really became gratuitous, but that didn't take away from the impact or the inventiveness of some of the spots. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. Like cage where Big Show tried to lock himself and Raven with the referee in the cage, try and win the match one-on-one, and Kane breaking through it. The freaking glass window moment where, you know, I think Big Show it was that threw Raven through a glass window, and then Kane showed up and they ended up fighting him. One of them went through the freaking wall and Raven wasn't there anymore. Like, there were a lot of really great moments in this match that were really memorable, and I would say a lot more memorable than any of the like street fight style matches that we get these days. And that's even if you remove the blood from this match. Like, if there was no blood in this match whatsoever, it still would have been a lot more enjoyable and a lot more memorable than not all, but still most of the hardcore street fight, you know, falls count anywhere type matches we get in WWE nowadays.
Yeah, you highlighted a lot of the best spots of the match, so I'm not going to retread that ground. Kane looked amazing here. I could see why Kane had such a fan base in like the early 2000s. Hell, I told you that the biggest Kane fan that I was his 02 to like early 04 run, like before he before he unmasked, and then after he unmasked when he was still like that really dominant heel, and then it started to go downhill. But the physique is just out of this world here, because that was before he had that bicep injury. And then like the athleticism, because he does an elbow drop kind of like through this little crash pad that they set up kind of thing. Because Big Show and Raven go down first thanks to Kane, and then Kane just does an elbow, I believe, on the Big Show, and he pins him. And it's just Big Show and Raven in this rubble while Kane emerges with the hardcore title. Kane was so dominant here. And I just think about his like 01 to again like early 04 run. And I hear that he didn't want the world title a lot, but man, like how he never had a run. They wouldn't have a big run again until 2010. And like that blows my fucking mind. But like, geez, he was great here. Kane was really the highlight to me. I love seeing him really be the monster, because nothing really beats that. And yeah, this really was a very fun hardcore match.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, though, it was a really fun hardcore match, but we've got to remember Kane won because he threw Big Show and then he elbow dropped him, picked up the championship, and he won. But then we get into our fourth match. This was yet another title match. There were so many titles back in the day, and people are going to be saying the exact same thing about this WrestleMania because of the split brands. But this was without split brands. This was when it was still we had SmackDown, but there weren't brand specific titles back in the day. We got the European Championship match. Test going into the match as champion, I believe, defending against Eddie Guerrero.
What did you think of this match, man? Because I know you were a big Eddie fan, like when you were coming into wrestling.
I gotta be honest, man. I was kind of disappointed by the match. Not to say it was bad by any means. It was still, I would argue, better than Jericho Regal, even if not by a significant margin. I just felt like I was expecting more. I wanted more, and the only real cheating that we got wasn't cheeky Eddie being like a fun douchebag cheating. It was just radical guys showing up, and Dean Malenko is a horrible actor.
Yeah. I gotta say, man, seeing Test, like Test will always be that one guy where I'm like, I wonder how far he could have gone because I feel like his ceiling was higher than what WWE let him realize within himself and within the booking. Eddie's always a pro. And this was before, I mean, Eddie was still in like that Latino heat phase, and he never gave up like Latino heat per se, but this is really before he found the whole lying, cheating, stealing thing that I think would really come to define his career. You know, sometimes it takes time, even for the most technically brilliant guys, to find their voice. And I feel like Eddie hadn't necessarily found his voice here. Not a bad match. I mean, they certainly protected the shit out of Test. I feel like he had Eddie beat on 3 occasions, but like interference or whatever always stopped him and kept Eddie in the match. And then Eddie hitting Test in the skull with the European Championship and pinning him, you know, great way to start the run. And yeah, I just felt like, yeah, it was a fun match. Not really much to speak of it though, but again, it was another match that didn't really overstay its welcome. It was the European Championship, not the most highly valued title on the card. And yeah, for what they did, it was fine. But you know,
yeah, I mean, you mentioned it didn't overstay its welcome. This match was only 8.5 minutes, so yeah, it definitely didn't.
Yeah, exactly. So not really much to say there, and I guess we can move on.
I'll tell you what match did have an appropriate stay relative to its welcome, though. Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit. This this match was exceptional. I know that the TLC match, I believe, won match of the year this year, but I don't even think that was the best match on this card because of Angle Benoit.
Dude, what I loved about this,
the first 3 minutes of this match alone, with them just positioning, trying to win over the positioning on their opponent, like that is wrestling ecstasy to me. That's amazing.
Oh, to you. I mean, you heard me on live reactions. I was trying not to bust a nut live. Like, I was like, God damn. It was absolutely amazing because I've seen like a few of Angle and Benoit's bouts, but I had never seen them do like that pure wrestling for the first few minutes. Like even their Royal Rumble match, I feel like, which is one of my favorite WWE Championship matches ever, didn't have that pure wrestling in the first few minutes. So when they're taking it to the mat and they're going hold for hold, like I'm just losing my shit because I'm like, oh my God, like yes, do all of it. And I love the little story they told because Kurt is clearly the heel here. Like he had a segment earlier in the night where like he's watching the tape of him tapping out to Benoit on an episode of Raw, but it wasn't a sanctioned match. And he's like, I did not tap out to Chris Benoit. It doesn't count, you know, kind of thing. And I love that because he's the heel. He breaks the pure wrestling first with the right hand. And yet he's the Olympic gold medalist. So like you'd think he'd be comfortable always taking it into the mat. But Benoit, Angle felt like was just constantly out wrestling him, especially towards the end when it seemed like he was teasing the crossface not once but twice. And then Angle breaks it with the right hand.
I wonder if there were any like Joe Rogan type voices back in the day. Well, you know what Joe Rogan's whole shtick is, right?
No.
He's like this hardcore MMA fan. He does commentary for the UFC. Like he's one of their commentators, but like he's this hardcore UFC snob who refuses to suspend his disbelief for wrestling. And if anybody from the UFC goes into wrestling and they lose a match, he bitches about how it's not realistic because in a real fight, this guy would kick that guy's ass. I wonder if there was anyone like that back in the early 2000s that was really pissed off about the story of this match being Chris Benoit, a professional wrestler, out wrestling Kurt Angle, an Olympic wrestler.
Well, you know, it's funny, dude, because I know the Briscoes, like Gerald Briscoe, apparently was a huge champion of Kurt Angle backstage.
Yeah.
And you know how we talk about like Triple H politicking? Like Triple H, I think, was talking about Kurt Angle's size or whatever. And Gerald Briscoe apparently looked Triple H right in the face and more or less said, well, I know we could kick your ass. Like, you want to try and take Kurt Angle? And Triple H apparently, like, shut up. But, yeah, so, like, the Briscoe was a huge champion of Kurt. I feel like Chris, you know, his legacy's kind of muddied, you know, with everything that's happened. And then you hear stories, like, even before he did what he did. Like, was he a bully? Was he that kind of guy like JBL like? But, you know, I always thought he was one of the more respected guys. I don't really know if he got a lot of heat. And, you know, Kurt was always stoked with working with Benoit. So I don't know if anybody was pissed about that. But, you know, just the idea that they were able to have that exchange, I thought was the coolest fucking thing. And then when it gets into the pro wrestling aspect, you know, that's great because you have Kurt trying to cheat and, you know, Benoit trying to keep it wrestling because he believes he's better than Kurt Angle. You have Kurt Angle throwing his belly to bellies. Chris, you know, trying to throw his Germans. We get the Chris Benoit headbutt, you know, Shades of Dynamite Kid. That's great. Kurt tries for his moonsault. Benoit gets the knees up. Benoit kicks out of an angle slam, and I think that came after Benoit got Angle in the crossface and he was tapping, but there was a ref bump. So these guys really did everything. And then I love like the final exchange too, because Benoit is trying to do something to Kurt. I don't know if it was like another German or a crossface or what, but then Kurt reverses, he gets a pin, and he grabs the tights. So like they really went out of their way to protect Benoit, and Kurt Angle, wins what I believe would have been his first WrestleMania. And it's crazy because, he was the champion only a month before this because he lost it at No Way Out to The Rock. And so I think it's, even though I am a Benoit guy, looking at it realistically, I do think the right guy went over because Kurt just lost the world title and I think he needed some momentum back. And so winning at WrestleMania in this kind of match, I think did that for him. But yeah, this match was phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Are we ready to move on already?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, then after this match, we got Chyna challenging the women's champion Ivory for the title. We've got to kind of throw back because apparently at the Royal Rumble, Chyna kayfabe injured her neck during a match with Ivory, which caused her to lose the match, so she couldn't win the title then. And then in order for her to challenge again for the title, Ivory required the match contact to include a hold harmless clause, which meant that if Ivory injured Chyna's neck again, there could be no legal recourse against Ivory. And then in doing so, the contract also included a provision to ban Ivory's right to censor stablemates from ringside. So this was all done leading up to it. And we ring the bell, and immediately Ivory goes after Chyna. She's pounding her into the ground. Chyna gets up, and there was just nothing going for Ivory at that point after that.
Yeah, Chyna more or less dominated, guys. There's really not much more to say than that. I feel like she won in like 2 minutes, it felt like. Really didn't feel like a long match at all. And yeah, Chyna's the new women's champion. She overcomes Ivory. She gets a WrestleMania moment. And yeah, nothing more to say than that. I you know what? And considering what women's wrestling used to be at this time, I feel like this is the perfect kind of match to have at Mania. Nobody's really getting shamed. Chyna is actually respected because she's able to like show her power and this and that. And she walks away with the belt. It's a shame for Ivory because I hear that she always was like a quality worker and she really wasn't able to put that on display here. But still, as a heel, I think she did her job of like people enjoyed like seeing her come up, especially at somebody that looks like Chyna, at that kind of expense. So yeah, good stuff all around. I got nothing else to really say about it.
All right, so but while we're here, we might as well talk about this. Do you think that this match is going to be kind of a blueprint for Alexa Nia?
Possibly. I feel like Alexa being a heel, she's going to be more shrewd than Ivory was. We are going to see the submission attempts and trying to wear Nia down and maybe even trying to...
Do you really think Alexa Bliss is going to use submissions to try and do anything?
I can totally see that contrived spot where she gets like on Nia's shoulders and tries the sleeper, but then Nia just grabs her by the hair and throws her down to the ground, like that kind of thing. I mean, she's not going to be pulling out like Kimura locks, you know what I mean? But it's going to be like more of those heel-based submissions, like, I'm not letting you go to sleep. And, it's not going to work. Or it could be a squash. I don't know. Nia could be so fired up and want to destroy Bliss that it could be a squash. I mean, I'm fucking hating the idea of the match regardless. So yeah, I guess we'll have to just see how it goes. All
right, man. Well, I guess let's move on. Next, we got our street fight. The Vince versus Shane, the McMahon street fight with Mick Foley as the special guest referee. This was a nothing match to me. I feel like there was a lot of hype for this. Like it was going to be one of those match of the year contender type matches, like Vince versus Hogan and Vince versus Shawn Michaels, but it was nowhere close to either one of those matches. It was really just Vince dominating, Shane doing a coast to coast, Mick helping Shane to win, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, you're pretty much right. Like, I'm so glad you mentioned Vince versus...
Although I will say the Linda story was hilarious because she was all comatose in her trance at ringside. Vince rolls her into the ring and wants to show her him beating the shit out of their son. And then, she gets up out of the wheelchair and it's the big reveal and she kicks Vince in the nuts and that leads to the finish.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned Vince versus Hogan And so that because and the only reason I don't single out Vince versus Shawn Michaels, I enjoyed that match, but Hogan was like a significantly older competitor compared to Shane at this time, and so was Vince. Like Vince had obviously aged, by 2 years at this point because that was WrestleMania 19, and I felt like they had a much better match than this because I really feel like the match really does come down to the coast to coast, which was beautiful. And especially when Shane was young, then it does take 5 hours to fucking set up. But yeah, I feel like this match was more banking on being memorable because Vince was such a heel at the time and such a character. This was more about, hey, we won't really give you the best match, but Vince is going to get his comeuppance in a multitude of ways. And then we're banking on that being enough. And you know something? If I was experiencing this live, it probably would have been, because Vince was such a sleazeball that seeing Trish slap him, seeing Mick retaliate after getting his skull caved in with a steel chair, which thanks a lot for that, Vince. Seeing Linda kick him in the balls and then seeing the coast to coast, it feels pretty good. But as a complete match, it absolutely is a little lacking, I think, in the ways that you described. Still a fun experience, but as a match, it's just kind of mess. So that's all I'm really going to say about that.
All right, man. I don't really have a lot to say about this either. Like I said, the most interesting stuff to me was the Linda stuff, which is ironic because Vince has already come right out and said that she's not a performer. So there's that. But hey, match, whatever. It was honestly to me, just because I feel like there was hype for it, I have to say it was overhyped, but maybe it wasn't at the time. Maybe it wasn't like it really does kind of remind me of the Shane Taker match from WrestleMania a couple of years ago when everyone was like, oh my God, this match is going to be great. And then it happened and it sucked. And everyone was like, oh God, that was awesome. Even though it wasn't, just because one big stunt happened in it. Like I don't know if this was Shane's first coast to coast, but I'm sure it was one of his first, if it wasn't the first. And I'm sure that moment alone made people like splooge over this match.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then we got TLC 2, the second ever TLC match, even though it was the third because the first one wasn't called TLC, it was called the Triple Ladder match. We had the Dudley Boyz, the Hardy Boyz, and Edge and Christian all vying for the tag team championship. And we also had extra representatives showing up for each team. We had Spike Dudley, little Spike Dudley, LSD for the Dudley Boyz. We had Rhino for Edge and Christian and Lita for the Hardy Boyz, all interfering in the match multiple times, including Rhino literally being the reason that Edge and Christian were able to win.
Yeah, I mean, you cut right to it there. This match was absolutely insane. I mean, Jesus Christ. Everybody maxing out their bump cards. You look at this match, and not to be morbid, I don't mean it that way, but I mean, you look at this match, and it's perfectly understandable why Edge was forced to retire. Like, good God, man. This was just insane. This is why matches like this should be reserved for pay-per-view. And I honestly wish, because, like, here, it wasn't, obviously the pay-per-view was WrestleMania, but we wouldn't get a gimmick pay-per-view like TLC until many years later. And I could see why the more old-school performers like an Edge are more nostalgic when matches like this happen more organically and weren't just part of a gimmick, weren't just part of a brand. Because these were three teams that really defined the tag team division, and they wanted to see who was better. And it's funny to me because I have a question for Attitude Era fans, and I've always wondered about this. Now, I'm a fan of Christian, even though I do like poking fun at him occasionally, and I am a fan of Edge. But I always felt like as a tag team, they weren't as over as either the Dudleys or the Hardys. And so it was weird for me that not only, I think they won like the first TLC and TLC 2, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like the Hardys won the triple ladder match, if I'm correct about that. But both TLC matches, Edge and Christian won. That's a big fucking rub to give a tag team. Like, were they really that over? Because, I mean, I know the crowd liked them to an extent, but I always thought the Hardys and the Dudleys were more so. I mean, is there anything you can say to that effect, Ashton?
I honestly wish I could tell you. I wish I remembered. What I do remember about Edge and Christian is that once they left the Brood, they did kind of explode a little bit, but I still want to say they were the least over team in this match, if not in the middle between the Dudleys at number 1 and the Hardys at number 3, because the Dudley Boyz were absolutely top of the world at this point, and I don't think anyone was more over than them. And if I remember correctly, Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boyz were kind of similar over-wise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, wow, and Jarvis is saying Edge and Christian also won the triple ladder match. I thought the Hardys also won. So, yeah, they gave Edge and Christian so much. And, like, maybe they were thinking long-term because, I mean, Edge did have a great look to be a singles guy. But, like, Jesus, man. And I'm not even saying that against Edge and Christian. I mean, mazel tov to them, right? I'm happy for them. It's just, it's crazy to think about.
From the WWE's perspective, and we've got to remember, Vince McMahon sees tag team wrestling as a way to build single stars. Like, that's all it is to him. He doesn't see art. He doesn't necessarily see an art in the tag team wrestling, as an art form. So if you think about that and you look at the 6 guys involved here, who looks most like a single star? Edge.
Yeah.
So, and really, like 2 of the top 3 potential single stars were in Edge and Christian, because I would say it's Edge, then Jeff Hardy, then Christian, then Matt Hardy, then Bubba, then Devon. I don't think Vince saw either one of the Dudley boys as potential single stars at all. And we would see that when we got the freaking, what was it, Pastor Devon or Deacon?
Reverend Devon.
Reverend Devon, that's right, yeah.
With Deacon Batista. Oh, God. Yeah, man. Great TLC match. I love, too, how each team kind of used their secret weapon. Lead, I felt like was used to great effect. Spike Dudley. I feel like I didn't appreciate Spike enough when he was around during my time. Like, as not only that scrapper, but as that hardcore scrapper. That guy that'll take the nasty table bump or, take that beating. I remember, I want to say it was, 2002, maybe 03. Yeah, I want to say late 02, when they did the big TLC match on Raw where Kane had to go in alone because Hurricane was attacked. And, Bubba was looking for a replacement and Spike stepped up because he said he always wanted to do one with his brother and, that big emotional story. So, yeah, like Spike. And I did enjoy his heel run as Cruiserweight champion. That had some great comedic stuff. But, yeah, Spike was great. And fucking Rhino, man, being the difference maker. Like, what the shit? That was nuts. Obviously, this TLC match has the iconic moment where Jeff is hanging onto the tag titles and he gets speared, all the way to the ground. That's used in every WrestleMania highlight reel ever now. It's immortal.
Thanks a lot, Edge.
Yeah, Edge. But yeah, great match, great moments. If you're into that kind of thing, this is probably your favorite match on the WrestleMania card. The only reason it wasn't for me is because I'm a snob and I like my pure wrestling, and so Angle and Benoit itched me or scratched my itches in all the right places. But
they itched you in just the right way.
Yeah, exactly. But credit to these 3 teams, because when they say that they laid the foundation for tag team wrestling in, what was then the World Wrestling Federation and now the WWE, you're damn right, because they paid a heavy price to get this shit done, and I'm honored to have seen it. Like, that's really cool, really cool.
All right, man. I feel like we're really breezing through this show, but I don't really have a ton to say about a lot of this stuff that we didn't already say in our live reaction. Up next, we had our Gimmick Battle Royal.
I gotta be honest, like, as far as card structure, this match makes perfect sense, but when you're live reacting, like, it still kind of makes sense, but I really didn't care for this at all. I was just looking to get past it, because this really was the point of the show where I'm like, okay, I've seen so much great wrestling, but I'm starting to get, like, fatigued just a little bit, like, from all the content and stuff. So I was happy when this moved by fairly quickly. Again, credit to WrestleMania that they paced it well. Glad that I got to make Cliff happy with my Jim Cornette impersonation, which he said last night was criminally underrated. Thank you, Paul. And yeah, good stuff. And Iron Sheik does win it. He didn't break any backs. He didn't make anybody humble, but he got to walk away with the Battle Royal win. So good for him.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't break any backs, including his own, which would have happened if he would have taken that over the top rope bump.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. I gotta say, though, I think my favorite moment of this match was when we got the natural disasters, the earthquake and typhoon. If I remember correctly, I think typhoon eliminated earthquake. It wasn't actually typhoon; it was tugboat. But he was typhoon when the natural disasters were a thing. So yeah, that was fun. And it's also funny too, because I was like, oh man, earthquake. That guy was the Shockmaster, when that's not actually true at all. The other natural disaster, typhoon, ended up being the Shockmaster. So I knew one of the natural disasters was the Shockmaster. I just apparently was wrong on which one. It wasn't John Tenta. It was, oh God, now I forget, tugboat. Fred Ottman, that's his name, Fred Ottman. Anyway, so then we get into our two big main event style matches, Taker versus Triple H and Austin Rock. Let's talk about Taker Triple H first. This match was so boring to me. I'm sorry, but I just could not get into this at all.
You know, I didn't hate it, but I could see why people would be underwhelmed by it when you're sharing on the same card, you know, Technical Excellence and Angle Benoit, and then a maze of balls like TLC 2. Like, it's almost like, okay, what are you going to do? I feel like this match would have been a lot better if they just made it no DQ to begin with, but then that would have been redundant because the main event at the last minute for the greater narrative got turned into no DQ. So this match is really kind of boxed into a corner, I feel like, because they wanted to do no rules, but they didn't want to do it explicitly. You know what I mean? So I don't know, kind of made it a bit awkward. But and I feel like for me, I couldn't even suspend my disbelief a little bit because we already know the history of the streak. We know it's not dying here. It's a shame because Triple H was still like in his badass kind of groove at this time, where it was like one of the top heels. And he had come off a huge win. Like narratively, this match makes perfect sense because narratively he had beaten Austin 2 out of 3 falls at No Way Out, which so many people call it the greatest rivalry of all time. And, you know, one of the greatest, you know, match endings to a rivalry because it was so perfect. And Triple H gets the win. So logically, it was either, okay, he goes for the world title or he does something else. We can't go for the world title because Austin won the Rumble, right? So he can't go there, even though that should logically be his next place. So then you go to the Undertaker. But I don't know, man. It's times like this where I wonder, was the streak maybe a bit overhyped? Now, I don't want to commit sacrilege, but you think about all the momentum Triple H had. Maybe this would have even been better. Again, no rules, and, you know, Triple H goes over and just becomes like this really unstoppable heel. But Undertaker does win, courtesy of a last ride. And that's another kind of criticism I have of the match, too. I never cared for the spot where it's like, oh, I'm going to do these 10-count punches and nothing's going to go wrong. 1, 2, wait, what the hell? Oh, last ride, 3 count. Like, what? It's just random as hell. I wish they could have set up the last ride a bit better, but it's whatever. Taker wins. He extends the streak. Not much more you can say than that.
Yeah. Good job, Undertaker. It's not.
Yeah. I guess we can move on.
It's not like he got this one handed to him on a silver platter or anything, right?
Yeah, certainly not. And yeah, the fucking thank you, chat. The extended ad, like Mike Chioda. All right, you're a fucking banana.
If you ask PW Gregory.
Yeah, like fucking Mike Chioda bruises like a banana apparently because it's like, oh god, I've been slingshot into one man's chest, collided with my chest, and now I must die. And you know, it's just like half an hour just laying there eating canvas. Hope you like that fiber intake, asshole. Jesus Christ. I really look forward to the day. You talk about this women's revolution. We need a referee revolution. We need a referee that knows how to take a freaking punch in the WWE. Hashtag no more soft refs. But there you go.
Oh, man. Poor Mike Chode. I love it. Calls him that. That's hilarious. Do you know what?
Yeah, it is.
John?
What was that last bit you said, partner?
Do you know what a chode is?
I know I thought I heard that term a lot on The League, that show that you and I love, but I don't know exactly what it means. Should I Urban Dictionary it?
You know, that might be a good idea. It's not. It's definitely sexual in nature, but it's not too vulgar that you wouldn't be able to handle reading about it.
All right, well, let me educate myself proper on the nature of the chode.
Well, do you want us to move on, or are you going to read the definition live?
Oh, I thought I could read the definition live, you know, educate these people.
Okay, well, I'll tell you if Urban Dictionary says what I heard growing up, what it is.
A chode apparently stands for a penis that is wider than the length.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's quite curious. All right, I guess we can move on.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm glad you read it live because PW Gregory just requested that you do that in chat, so it worked out quite well.
You get what you pay for, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we can get to the final contest, the main event of the evening. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock for the WWF Championship. No disqualification. And about 2/3 of the way into the match, Vince McMahon showed the hell up.
Yep, and then we got the heel turn of the century.
Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, we could say of the decade, because Hogan's was probably bigger in the 90s, but of the decade for sure.
Yeah. because Austin sells out, which again, I really didn't appreciate. Like, even if you want to say the heel turn was still bad, like I get that. But when I was going back and I was revisiting the Austin Triple H rivalry that I just got done talking about in the prior bout, Taker versus Triple H, that one commenter that mentioned like the aftershocks of their No Way Out match and how that even plays into the narrative, I thought was really well thought out. Because, you know, Austin losing to Triple H, like even though he wouldn't explicitly come out and say it, it was like he was doubting himself and he needed to be The Rock. He needed to beat The Rock. He needed to be WWE champion. He needed to be the man again, and he'd be willing to do that at any cost. And he didn't want to leave it to chance, like, you know, because at No Way Out, he lost in a really bullshit way because him and Triple H hit each other with objects. I think with Austin it was like a barbed wire 2x4. With Triple H, it was a signature sledgehammer, and Triple H happened to fall on top of Austin for the 3 count. Well, Austin didn't want any of that bullshit to go down, so he invests in Vince McMahon, much to Jim Ross's horror, because he's absolutely apoplectic at that point. As far as the match itself goes, prior to the heel turn, I mean, it's classic Rock Austin with a no DQ step. I feel like they maximized it well. I mean, Austin especially. I mean, utilizing it first, you know, kind of hinting at like he's the more desperate competitor. He's the competitor that's going to turn. We had ring bells. We had steel chairs. If I had any criticism besides the execution of some of the moves, because I know you and I lamented how they both execute a sharpshooter, like you need to dial up Ishii and you need to educate yourself, son, for fuck's sake. The only other thing I really didn't care for, I understand protecting The Rock and protecting your champion, but it started to go into that like that old ROH territory that I used to complain about when I was like a younger like internet personality first starting out on YouTube. Like, oh, I hate when you can do a brain buster on a top rope and you get 2 3/4. Like, it did get there a little bit for me. I felt like it was enough protection for The Rock. The idea that Stone Cold felt the need to sell out to his greatest adversary. Like, I think that says everything about The Rock as a babyface that you need to, just from a more narrative perspective, that you don't need to go out of your way and be like, he kicked out of a stunner and 5 chair shots. So that grated on me a little bit, but on the whole, I enjoyed the match. I thought it was a great main event, and Austin's your new WWE champion. What did you think about it?
No, you're wrong. Heel Austin is your new.
Yes. Heel Austin, and that's the bottom line because Vince McMahon says so. He would actually say that the following night on Raw. So yeah,
unbelievable.
Oh, we got a super chat here from Paul William Gregory, $4.99 pound super chat. No disqualification. Yep. Goddamn. So what do you think about it, Ashton?
I mean, obviously the match was great. The match itself was just exceptional. The like you said, the sort of relentless finisher fest that we got at the end really did almost remind me of Rock Cena 2. So that was kind of excessive and a little unnecessary, but I gotta tell you, man, the overall match didn't suffer too much for it. I feel like Austin, and really another thing that I think was excessive was just the both of them bleeding, like was not necessary at all. I feel like you could have told this story just as effectively, if not more effectively, with very limited to no blood involved, and it still would have been a great story and a great match and everything. If I had to rank the matches on this show, this probably wouldn't even be in my top 3. Like, I would say my top 3 would be Angle Benoit, TLC, and the triple threat hardcore match from a pure entertainment perspective. And then this would be coming in as a close 4th.
Yeah, you know, that's understandable. And, you know, you mentioned the color being involved in the match, like both guys bleeding. I think about my time when blood was used. I almost like, this is going to sound like a weird thing. Like, wow, John, you're thinking about the product way too much. But like, I almost feel like blood was kind of used in a wrong way, because if somebody's bleeding, right, like that's almost like the epitome of suffering. And I feel like that should be more of a babyface device because, oh my God, he's in such a bad way. He's bleeding. And like, I feel like it would have been better if Austin, being this very desperate, aggressive challenger, busted open The Rock. And even in spite of losing all the blood and all the sweat and everything, like The Rock still came back and Austin still needed Vince McMahon to win. So I feel like Rock bleeding and Austin not probably would have been better. The same way it was better for Austin and his famous I Quit match with Bret Hart. Like that imagery of him being in the sharpshooter while the blood's coming down his face, like that's an iconic image. So I almost feel like blood is sometimes used to just like dramatize the whole, and I feel like it could really be used more to create sympathy and humanize the babyface. I don't know, just some musings I thought of when you were talking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
man.
What was that?
I was just saying, like, I feel like we've kind of run out of things to talk about, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's WrestleMania.
Let me look up the aftermath here. The following night, Austin and Rock face each other in a rematch in a steel cage. Triple H entered the cage, teased a fight with Austin before turning on The Rock. So we got Vince, Triple H, and Austin triple teaming The Rock. That's right.
That's another segment I watched on YouTube as well. I watched that segment. I remember JR's commentary. Stone Cold, Triple H, and Vince McMahon on one vile, nasty page. And what can we do about it? Like, that was the formation of two-man power trip.
Yep. And that was when Rock went to Hollywood. I think that was to film The Scorpion King. Yeah, it was. Oh, man.
So the beginning of the end.
The Rock got suspended in hard quotes, too, just like little cousin Roman.
$5 super chat from Jarveris Carter. I'm shocked no one mentioned how Raven nearly cut the power to the entire arena during that match. I know Paul William Gregory mentioned it in chat during this review. But live reactions, we weren't even aware of it. And we were only aware of it now. And that is an interesting little anecdote that Raven could have killed WrestleMania, but thankfully he didn't.
Yeah, it was a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. Exactly. Anything else you want to say, Ashton? Because, yeah, I really got nothing else I could say about this.
No, I don't really have that much to add either, man. All I know is this was a really fun watch. We do have another WrestleMania down the pike for you guys. We're going to be reacting to WrestleMania 14. That's a Cliff 'em All special. And we've also been getting all kinds of crazy requests. We're also going to be live reacting to Ring of Honor's Super Card of Honor on the Wednesday after WrestleMania. So that'll be interesting for sure. That show actually happens same night, same time as NXT TakeOver New Orleans. So we weren't going to be able to live react to it as it happens. So we're going to have to live react to it as a VOD on the following Wednesday. So that's going to be a lot of fun. TWitWoW Mania is in like a week or two. I don't even know what the videos are going to be when that starts, how many videos we're going to put out during TWitWoW Mania this year. It was a crazy like 2-week experience last year. It was nuts. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I don't really know, man. How are you feeling about the whole situation right now?
Oh, I'm fucking ready for it. Bring it on. And then when it's over, I'm like, no, I didn't mean that aggressively. Save me. But no, I'm ready for it. We'll see how it all is. I mean, I'm not looking forward to WrestleMania itself as it currently stands. TakeOver New Orleans has the potential to be our best live reaction video of the year with the way the card's looking on paper. So I'm fucking stoked for that. And everything else in between, come at us, audience. Give us your best shot. So, yeah, I want to thank Paul again for his very generous donation to the Patreon. Love your face, Paul. And I hope you enjoyed our live reaction and our review, despite the fact that we kind of breezed through the review. There really wasn't much to say. Card top to bottom was stacked. Overall, I'd give this WrestleMania, if I'm being honest, I think I'd give this WrestleMania like an 8 to an 8.5 out of 10 on the whole. I really enjoyed this show. I thought
I think an 8.5 is a very appropriate rating to give it. I would agree with 8.5. I don't know if you want to stick into that or if you want to go.
Yeah, no, I could stick to that because I was even going to say the stuff that was good was really good. And even the stuff that was bad, it never got into that offensive. Yeah, oh, my God.
I was going to say, like, there wasn't really anything blatantly bad on this show. There was stuff that wasn't good. There was stuff that was boring, but there wasn't anything that made me, like, angry, you know?
Exactly. Like, there was never anything that made me just hate the fact that I have eyeballs, you know? So that's always a positive. And I just really appreciate Paul for making the donation he did. You're amazing, Paul. I know he's already talked about, like, other stuff he wants us to do. You know, time and place is everything, Paul, and I'm sure we'll do the other stuff you've got in mind. And if WrestleMania 17 was any indication, I very much look forward to it, my friend. So thank you again.
All right, guys, let's call it here. We appreciate the donation to get us to do this, Paul, and we appreciate you picking such great shows for us to live react to and review and all that stuff in the first place. It's awesome. And our next request from Paul, once he accumulates the required amount of money in Patreon to request it, is going to be WWF Invasion. So that's going to be amazing. And guys, we will see you all on, I mean, shit, man, when is our next show? What do we do next?
That's an excellent question. Since we're still in the month of March, we're not doing Progress this month. So I guess our next show, and we don't even have anything.
Review.
Yeah, NXT review. Wow, because, yeah, we're done with Lucha stuff until Lucha comes back in the early summer. So, Damn.
Man, next week is going to be the calm before the storm, though, no, it's not. We've got 2 calm weeks next week and the final week of March. The last 2 weeks of March are going to be chill as fuck. And then the first week of April is going to be the biggest clusterfuck of all time.
It's like, what happened? Where did everything go? But no, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
When is our next New Japan show? I'm going to look that up because we're not bothering with the New Japan Cup finals or anything like that. So I'm guessing, are we? No, we're not. Let's see. NJPW Strong Style Evolved. Are we live reacting to Strong Style Evolved?
I thought we said we weren't, but okay. I'm not sure.
We'll figure something out, guys. All I know is next week, the only thing that we currently have planned is our NXT review. And that's going to be a lot of fun, and we will see you there. But of course, in order for us to see you there, you know how this goes, guys. You've got to remember to stay tuned.